sea is more than a travelogue to tempt true sportsmen. It is a practical demonstration of how air transportation has and can bring more pleasure to more people. The nation's finest fishing grounds and hunting grounds at one time were inaccessible to you because of the travel time involved. However, through Eastern Airlines Flying Fishermen and Hunters Clubs, those forests and waters within Eastern Airlines are yours to enjoy, only a few hours away. Up in telling our story, we turn to the foremost authority on hunting and fishing, Sports Afield magazine. Their expert cooperation has helped to make this film possible.
That was all, brother. I had that tarpon hooked, and he knew it. I started to reeling him in. 5 minutes later, he was on the gaff and in the boat. That was yesterday morning. Oh, man, yesterday? That's right, yesterday morning. Then in the afternoon, about 3 o'clock, we were trolling, and what happened, I tell you?
Oh, of course, Charlie. But wait till Isaac Walton hears about this.
Wait till Diogenes hears about it. Kangaroo court. That's an idea. Kangaroo court. We'll get the truth out of you.
Right.
Your Honor. Gentlemen of the jury, I hereby charge this man with lying when he makes a claim, as he does, that he caught a tarpon over the weekend. Such a feat is an impossibility, as I shall now prove.
Now you're talking.
You're right. It can't be done.
I'll say, make him tell the truth.
Order in the court. Proceed, Mr. Prosecutor.
Thank you, Your Honor. It is true, is it not, that you live and work in this city?
Yes, of course.
Item 1. There are no tarpon in this area. The defendant, then, could not possibly have caught one anywhere near his home and to business. Did you have any extra time off from work on the weekend just ended yesterday?
No, I had just the usual time, Friday evening to Monday morning.
There you are. Item 2. It is hundreds of miles to the nearest tarpon waters. Therefore, it would be utterly impossible for this man or any other man to go there, fish, and get back again, all in the space of an ordinary weekend. Now, in the face of these discrepancies, do you still persist in making this preposterous claim?
I do. I did catch a tarpon, and I caught it yesterday.
Then I repeat my charge. You have uttered a bold, bald-faced falsehood. You, true to the tradition of fishermen, have told a whopper.
Your Honor, if the court please.
Do you, prosecutor, wish to withdraw?
I certainly do not. However, I shall rest my claim for the moment.
You may proceed with the defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. Gentlemen of the jury, the fact that my client is a fisherman notwithstanding, he has told no untruth, as I shall prove to your complete satisfaction. First, consider the character, and shall we say, professional standing of my client. Your hobby is fishing, is it not?
It is?
Know enough about it to be called an expert fisherman?
Well, yes, I suppose so.
And just where did you get this expert knowledge?
From experience. And from here.
Do any of you gentlemen recognize this publication?
Of course, the #1 sportsman's magazine.
Everybody knows Sports Afield. Best magazine of its kind.
Best magazine, period.
I can assume, then, that you have the utmost confidence in this periodical and its contents. Now, what would you say if I told you that complete vindication of my client is contained within these pages?
No, I object, Your Honor. This is irrelevant, immaterial, and unconstitutional.
Objection denied. No tricks now.
No tricks, Your Honor. Nice try. Just proof.
Huh?
Positive proof. And here it is.
Oh, well.
May I show it to the jury?
Well, yes, of course. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, what do you know? Quite an idea, eh?
Huh, that's a new one on me.
Say, that's really something.
You bet your sweet life that's really something. The Flying Fisherman Club, one of the greatest ideas ever introduced to sportsmen. This is the complete and foolproof answer to the charge made against my client. This, gentleman, is actually how he was able to go fishing over the weekend and catch the tarpon he says he caught.
Flying fisherman. Flying fiddle-faddle. I see no proof. Explain yourself. Make it simple. I'm a simple man.
I can see that, and with pleasure. The Flying Fisherman Club is one of the world's most unusual sportsmen's clubs. It is composed of amateur and veteran fishing enthusiasts who have discovered that the world's finest fishing grounds are only a few short hours away by Eastern Airlines. Suppose you're one of them. You get that fishing feeling. Maybe you're working too hard and need a change. Maybe the thought of another weekend of strain and worry gets you down. Maybe... But do you really need a reason to go fishing? So you make a call. A call to any Eastern Airlines reservations office. And you book space to, well, you name it. What's your pleasure? Saltwater fishing? You've got the whole Atlantic seaboard and the Gulf of Mexico to choose from. They're fishing for something, somewhere, all the year round. So it doesn't matter which month you go. Or maybe you're a freshwater fisherman. Fine. Choose your fish. And Eastern Airlines, serving the best inland fishing waters, will get you to where he's the biggest and fightingest. To be specific, though, suppose it's deep blue water that's calling you. At the airport, an Eastern Airlines sky giant, fast, far-ranging, comfortable, awaits, ready to carry you quickly and smoothly to the land of tarpon, marlin, sailfish. A great feeling, this, leaving the cares of business behind, the sport of a lifetime ahead. Once on your way, the fun really starts. Aboard a ship of the great Silver Fleet, strain and tension drop away. You're literally on top of the world. Luxury aloft, guest of the line.
Naturally, a sportsman has to build up strength for heavy play ahead. This really lifts the spirit, while the mighty plane annihilates space.
No fisherman ever traveled with better service, convenience, and pleasure. And it's all yours from takeoff to landing. And here we are, Miami, Mecca of sport fishermen from all over the world, and only a few hours by Eastern Airlines from your own hometown. On arrival, our flying fisherman is met by a club representative who has made all arrangements.
On the usual short vacation, half the time is spent just getting ready for fishing. When everything's finally set, the hopeful sportsman feels like collapsing in bed and forgetting about the whole thing. But this is different. There's a sincere feeling of good fellowship and no troublesome details to straighten out. One phone call did the trick. And now, in good hands, he can get right down to important business. At the pier, there's a wide choice of good fishing boats. Here's one that's all set, ready to go. The skipper and men are equally friendly and informal.
These boats are accredited by Eastern Airlines to certify any catch we make. While there are no dues to pay in the Flying Fisherman Club, we must make a catch and have it certified before we can join. This one catch and traveling by Eastern Airlines to make it are the sole requisites for membership in the club. Every catch we make thereafter is also certified, put on the record so that we can compete for trophies awarded every year for the biggest catches of various fish. These trophies are donated by Captain Eddie Rickenbacker, president of Eastern Airlines, himself an enthusiastic flying fisherman. Let's get going and try our luck. This is great sport and high adventure. Anything can happen, so suppose we go looking. A clear blue sky, smooth water, and good companions. The perfect combination for a brief escape from dull office routine. Let others worry about deadlines to meet. This weekend, we'll concentrate on fishing lines. There's room at the stern for several Isaac Waltons, and other lines are strung on the outriggers. With this multiple threat, there should be plenty of action. Of course, it's always possible to wedge in a little time for good conversation. In the boat's wake darts the lure for unwary creatures of Neptune's realm. So I said to the old boy, hold everything. Brace those legs, there's a battle ahead. Strike, and a whopper. Oh, brother, what a beauty. A little breather for a moment. The fish is in no hurry to go aboard. It's a real art, landing a husky fighter with such a light rod. The battle may go on for hours. And now again, a brief rest. But this big boy isn't calling it quits. Well, it's finally the end of the line for our ocean battler. So, with expert assistance, he's hauled in by the nose. From now on, this sailfish will be spending his days in the trophy room, the object of many discussions. So the white flag is run up announcing the sailfish catch, a special event that rightly calls for a bit of boasting. And Florida fishing is really worth talking about. But a flying fisherman has unlimited choice. If he wants plenty of exercise, there's nothing better than going after swordfish. These fish are notoriously tough critters. This sport calls for a king-size rod and a sturdy back. What a long nose you have. Just bringing him in is enough to send a good man reeling. The sword-like beak of this upper jawbone, as you know, can punch a neat hole through the hull of a small wooden boat, so it isn't advisable to go sword fishing in a canoe. This demands a lot of patience. The fish is willing to wait, but our friend's making headway, and it won't be long now. Come aboard, pal, and be introduced to the club. Finally tuckered out, the ocean battler wearily surrenders. So he's hauled in, and this is no small job in itself. Gentlemen, this is really a whopper. How would you like to have him over your mantel? Fishing off the Florida and Mexican coasts sometimes yields a monster like this. Resembling a flying wing with two nacelles, the manta ray, or blanket fish, can kill a man with his powerful flippers. As we mentioned before, you freshwater anglers have a stake in the Flying Fisherman Club, too. Eastern serves the best of inland fishing waters. All you have to do is get aboard and go. How about a quiet pine forest and a stream all to yourself, like this, with nothing to do but catch a few dozen trout that are just swimming around waiting for you? In a matter of hours or even minutes, you could be here, demonstrating the ancient art of angling. Of course, some people prefer to knock themselves out at the office over weekends, but we won't guarantee they'll have trout for dinner. One thing is certain. Yes, sir, these will provide some edifying eating. Why Why just sit and dream about trolling for bass? Do it. There's nothing that gives a fisherman that old spine-tingling thrill as when a bass strikes. There's something about it that, well, you know what I mean. You're a fisherman. You keep the line taut because the bass is never yours until he's in your boat. And there he is. Yes, sir. You, plus a lake, plus tackle, plus fighting bass, can add up to a lot of fishing fun. Or perhaps your dish is tarpon fishing. If so, it's a mighty sensible choice. For here's a sport that few can rival. This husky aquatic acrobat will battle it out long enough to suit any sportsman who welcomes a real challenge. Although a native of the sea, this Florida Everglades specimen is in fine fettle and is determined to stay right where he is. With such a light rod, there's a good chance he may, but this puts a quick end to the struggle. And what a glittering beauty. Yes, tarpon fishing requires a high degree of skill. It's a real achievement bringing in one of these babies. He's only about 6 feet long, but he's finny dynamite. Talk about flying fish. This fellow not only leaps, he barrel rolls, tail spins, and performs every trick of an ace pilot. It takes a mighty good fisherman to keep up with him. With the eerie beauty of the Everglades, here's a vacation experience that'll be long remembered. So you see, whatever your favorite fish and fishing ground, the finny world is yours when you're a flying fisherman. Whether it's Mexico or Maine, your sport is right next door. It's easy, it's convenient, it's fast by Eastern Airlines. No longer need you say you haven't the time. A weekend is long enough for the flying fisherman. A weekend that's no longer than any other weekend. One that brings zip, ready to tackle the job full tilt, and ready to start planning right away for your next flying fisherman trip. So you see, gentlemen, my client, the flying fisherman, had ample time to do what he said he did. Catch a tarpon over the weekend. Therefore, I ask you in the name of Kangaroo Court Justice.
What's the matter, huh? What? Oh.
Don't tell me you slept all the way through my magnificent defense speech.
I'm sorry, Ken, but you see, I'm no fisherman. Now, if you'd been talking about hunting...
So you're a hunter, huh?
Yeah.
Well, just listen to this. The companion club to the Flying Fisherman Club is Eastern Airlines Flying Hunter Club. Eastern serves the nation's choice hunting grounds, too, and makes available to every member the best that every season has to offer in all kinds of game. Deer, bear, moose, game birds like animated etchings in flight formation. They're ready for sportsmen on scores of lakes, large and small, within easy reach by our planes. This goose demonstrates a tricky takeoff technique. Up landing gear, what a smooth takeoff. Here we go. Graceful indeed are the wild wings. Few creatures reveal the coordination of these birds. Out in the open fields, the Nimrod has plenty of opportunity to test his skill. Here's a little chap who's waiting impatiently to appear on your dinner plate. Why not let this pleasant pheasant realize his ambition? And none should quail at the prospect of bringing these in for dinner. Wildfowl can be had for the taking, and there's nothing like communing with nature after weeks of exhausting office duties. If you want a longer trip, pay a visit to Texas wild turkey family. They grow 'em big and long-legged down Texas way. Too bad they don't move as slowly as this one, filmed in slow motion. Whatever the quarry, There's sure to be good companionship on a hunting trip. So imagine yourself in this group. Out comes the dog, and the sport begins. With calls to unwary birds, the dog eagerly ranges the field. Here's a pastime enjoyed by many kings. Looks like we're in business. That's it, pal. Flush him out. Now to draw a bead. That does it. Okay, bring him in. This is really a bird dog's life worth living. Good work, pal. And now we'll leave these lucky fellows and join some other members of the Flying Hunters Club. Perhaps you prefer duck. Well, here's the way to bag a dinner. And again, man's faithful friend takes over. Nice work if you can get it on a warm day. So paddle on, bozo. You'll get your reward later. There we are. Now for the return trip. Yes, a vacation in the great outdoors is a welcome relief from city streets and everyday monotony. And this flying hunter can look forward to a mighty pleasant dinner. There now, feel any better?
Much better. I was beginning to think that we hunters were being overlooked.
Not a chance. Eastern Airlines always takes care...
May I again remind the defense that a man and nothing else is on trial in this court?
Right, Your Honor, and I believe I've proved my point. On the basis of my evidence, I ask that my client be accused of nothing more than enjoying himself. A few years ago, Charlie, you couldn't possibly have done all you claimed. But today, with the Flying Fisherman and Flying Hunter Clubs, all of this not only is part of reality for thousands of men and women. Rest, recreation, fun, 1,000 or 100 miles away, all on a weekend. All in the space of hours and minutes, no matter where you live. All these dividends, extra dividends, more pleasure from an active life, are a regular part of the activities of Eastern Airlines Club members and are available to all of you. So for you, you lucky man, if it so please the court, I ask that...
What happened?
I don't know. But I've got a darn good idea. Come on.
Hello, Eastern Airlines? Look, I want to go hunting. Now, here's what I want you to do.
Hey, listen, I want to get a...
Oh, shut up, will you? Look, here's what... I wasn't talking to you. Wait a minute.
Give me that phone. I don't know about this Flying
Give me
Fisherman's
that phone. Never mind the Flying Fisherman's Club. I want to know about the Flying Hunters Club. My name is Jones. I want to leave here this Friday. I want my one ticket.
Make it two.
Yeah, never mind. I'm a hunter. I'm going hunting. You're a fisherman.
You hunt, I'll fish. Make it two. I want to fly.
All right, make it two. We don't care either way. Get us out of here.
Gentlemen, our sales problem is essentially quite simple. We're doing all of our business in one brief period of the year. Now, gentlemen, I've given this matter a great deal of thought, and I've reached this conclusion. We must find a way to make people buy Christmas trees all year long. We must be bold in our thinking. We must be willing to smash a tradition older and more sacred than the American home itself. We must. eliminate the word Christmas from our thinking. Have the janitor clean that up. We must, I repeat, sell our trees all year long.
But, sir, I don't think people will buy Christmas trees in July.
What is your name, young man?
Bascom, sir. Fordyce P. Bascom. Marketing research under Smith.
Thank you, Bascom. And now, get out! Out, I say! We've no place for the likes of you at Acme. And now, are there any more faint hearts among us? Good. Then let's get to work. Now, first, a few original ideas of my own. Just tossing them on the table for whatever they're worth. Just thinking off the top of my head. What about our trees for June weddings? Make an ideal place to hang the gifts.
Well, maybe the problems of the Acme Christmas Tree Company do seem a little far-fetched. Trying to sell Christmas trees in July. But I can sympathize with those people. Their problem may sound ridiculous, but it isn't too far removed from mine. You see, I'm a distributor of Phillips Anhydrous ammonia. And I can appreciate the problems of anyone who faces a heavy rush of business concentrated in a short period of time. My business is that way now, and frankly, I'd like to see things change for the better. Now, nobody's going to seriously try to sell Christmas trees in the middle of summer. There just aren't any advantages to the buyer in a proposition of that sort. After all, tradition says Christmas trees in December, and tradition is a pretty tough thing to fight. I know. That's why I'm here. I want to convince you that the best time to fertilize is not just prior to planting, as farmers have traditionally done it, but far in advance of that time, in the fall or winter months. There are advantages to both of us in that. You'll get better crops as a result, you'll spread your workload over the year, and I'll be able to offer you better service, if I'm not badly rushed with a heavy volume of business in a short period of time. But I'm afraid I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, let's start at the very beginning. Now, we all know that chemical fertilizers are necessary to maintain high crop yields, particularly under conditions of declining prices of commodities produced on farms. The nation's farmers need more efficient and productive methods to reduce unit costs. This is the only way to keep profits up. Plants need food on which to grow. And they find these food elements, nitrogen, phosphorus, potash, and others, in the soil, and remove it for their own use. Unless the supply of plant food is constantly replenished through crop rotation, fertilization, and other good farming practices, we wear the soil out. Now, growing plants need more nitrogen than any other element. Tests have shown, for example, that corn plants take at least 130 pounds of nitrogen from the soil for every 100 bushels of corn produced. One of the best ways to replenish the soil supply of nitrogen is through the use of anhydrous ammonia as a fertilizer. One major source is the Phillips ammonia plant at Adams Terminal near Houston, Texas.
The modern Adams Terminal ammonia plant has a capacity of 540 rail tank cars per month. Here, in an intricate maze of pipes, towers, and reactors, natural gas is combined with air and steam, subjected to intense heat and tremendous pressure, while passing over platinum catalysts to bring about the union of two elements, nitrogen and hydrogen, to form ammonia. Production of all other synthetic nitrogen fertilizer starts with anhydrous ammonia, since it contains 82% nitrogen. In recent years, agricultural scientists and agronomists have conducted widespread experiments on the use of anhydrous ammonia gas itself as a fertilizer. Since it contains a high concentration of nitrogen, it is proving the most economical source of this most important plant food. Indications are that in the future, this and other Phillips ammonia plants will be called upon to turn out more and more anhydrous ammonia, the life-giving plant food produced through the magic of chemistry.
Yes, anhydrous ammonia is the best, most concentrated source of nitrogen. And it's easy to apply. You simply place the gas deep within the soil and...
Hold on there a minute, would you please? Now, you say anhydrous ammonia is easy to apply, and yet you say it's a gas. I'm sorry, but I can't see how that adds up to an easy job. How do you do it? How do you know how much you're applying if it's a gas, and what makes it stay put?
Well, I think maybe we ought to let an expert answer that. A man who's had experience with both types of application. Direct injection into the soil and metering into irrigation water. I mean a county agent. First off, let me say this. I'm as sold on the use of anhydrous ammonia as I've ever been on anything in the field of agriculture. I've worked with it. I know what it'll do. And I'm convinced it's just a matter of time until farmers everywhere are using it. There's nothing complicated about applying it. You simply rent or buy an applicator, attach it to your tractor, and go over your fields. As the soil is turned, the gas is deposited 4 to 6 inches beneath the surface, even deeper in some localities. And don't worry about the amount of gas deposited. A metering device on the applicator controls the amount of gas applied per acre. If you're farming by irrigation, you simply meter the gas into the water as you irrigate. The anhydrous ammonia unites with the water immediately to create a rich source of nitrogen fertilizer. And speaking of water, experiments have shown that plant roots have the strength to go deeper in fertilized soil, get down into the subsoil and utilize stored moisture for vigorous growth. In unfertilized soil, on the other hand, roots lack the vitality to penetrate, are forced to rely more heavily on rainfall to nourish themselves. Indications are that plants growing in fertilized soil will thrive on 1/4 the rainfall needed to sustain growth of unfertilized plants. In a dry year, fertilizing can mean the difference between a cash crop and disaster. Well, now that we've got the anhydrous ammonia gas in the soil by injection or irrigation, let's see what sort of reaction takes place. What keeps it there? And again, let's go to an expert for information. This time, Dr. George E. Smith, professor of soils at the University of Missouri.
Maybe it seems a little strange to you to find a college professor out in the field rather than in the classroom. But you see, my big job at Missouri is in field experimentation in soil fertility. And for the past few years, I've been studying anhydrous ammonia fertilization rather closely. Let me emphasize here and now, anhydrous ammonia is not a cure-all. It doesn't take the place of all other fertilizers. It is an excellent source of that all-important element nitrogen. However, there still is a need for such elements as phosphorus, potassium, and many others. The most practical way to find which elements your soil might lack to sustain a specific crop is through soil analysis. Talk to your county agent about that. Have your soil analyzed before you plant. It's far better to know which elements your soil needs and to supply them through chemical fertilizer than to discover the telltale signs of plant starvation midway through the growing season. Then it's too late. To get back to anhydrous ammonia, we know that all plants need nitrogen, huge quantities of it. And we know that anhydrous ammonia is one of the best, certainly the most concentrated source of nitrogen. Why is this so? How can ammonia gas supply nitrogen? How, for that matter, can a gas placed in the earth provide a continuing source of plant food? Anhydrous ammonia is a combination of nitrogen and hydrogen. As soon as the gas is injected in the soil, a chemical reaction takes place. The gas, attracted to soil particles, unites with them to form solids, ammonium clay and ammonium organic material. Now, the decay of turned under crop residues is speeded up by the presence of this nitrogen. Soil bacteria feed on the nitrogen, and this causes them to attack the organic matter and increase the process of decomposition that enriches the soil. One of the big advantages of anhydrous ammonia is the fact that it is released below the soil level, buried deep in the earth. It can't blow away. It becomes a part of the soil itself. It is there, on call, you might say, awaiting the day when young plants will need nitrogen to grow upon. And being planted deep, it doesn't encourage weed growth, as do some types of fertilizer.
Well, as you see, I have no trouble in getting expert help to sell the idea of using anhydrous ammonia as a fertilizer. I've got plenty of help. And why do I say my business is like the Acme Christmas tree company? Well, actually, it's a matter of time. Here, let me show you. Anhydrous ammonia is stored in tanks like those out there. They are my warehouse, the equivalent of the Acme people's Christmas tree farms. Now, so long as most farmers follow the tradition of fertilizing just prior to planting, I'm in the same position as the Acme company. A big rush of business concentrated in a short span of time. Oh, now don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining about being too busy. I like to be busy. But when there's a big rush on, I may not be able to give you the service I'd like to, the service you need. And unlike people selling Christmas trees, the material I have for sale is practical and useful all year round. That's my whole point in being here. To try to convince you that you should break with tradition and fertilize in the fall and winter months.
Hey, hold up a minute. Did you say fertilize in the fall or winter? And that kind of like shaving on Tuesday for church on Sunday? I've always worked on the theory that the best time to put fertilizer in the ground is about the time that the young plant roots will be needing it. Is there anything wrong in that?
Well, let's see what Dr. Smith has to say about it.
The point is well taken. Fertilizing just prior to planting has always been the custom, and crop results have been good. But we're dealing here with an entirely new type of fertilizer in anhydrous ammonia. Now, as I've already mentioned, the application of anhydrous ammonia to the soil sets up a chemical reaction, particularly with the organic matter that has been turned under. The best time to start that reaction is when cover crops and crop residues are turned under. That way, the rotting action has plenty of time to take place. The soil is made rich with nitrogen well in advance of planting, and anhydrous ammonia stays put in the soil. If your crops were not to use a single pound of the nitrogen it released, that nitrogen would continue to stay there, not for weeks or months, but possibly for years. In the past, fertilizing has been pretty much of a speculation. You spent time and money spreading a fertilizer prior to planting, and along came a drought or a horde of grasshoppers, and your crop was reduced or even wiped out. The fertilizer money was lost. With anhydrous ammonia, it's a different story. Doing the job this new way takes the speculation out of fertilizing, makes it a sound business move. For if drought or insects reduce your crop, if the plants don't remove the nitrogen from the soil that season, it will remain there until it is needed. Money spent on anhydrous ammonia is never wasted. It's an investment you know will pay off.
Well, that's the technical side of the story. Now, how about the practical side? Come planting time, farmers are just about the busiest people I know. I don't have to tell you that. Now, wouldn't there be very definite advantages to you in getting one big spring chore done ahead of time? Wouldn't the saving in time alone make it worthwhile? And when you consider that applying anhydrous ammonia during the fall or winter results in richer soil and better crops, doesn't it all add up to one big fact? That you'll be better off by changing your methods to take advantage of this newest agricultural development? Yes, it's a matter of time. Your time. And to you, that's the most important raw material in the world. Because sometimes nature won't wait. Sometimes being held up in your planting by a wet, cold spring can mean that you'll miss the market if you have to take time out to fertilize. Well, I guess that just about covers it. That's all of my story.
Not so fast. I've still got a question that wants answering. Now, I've got a good spread of winter wheat and about 10 acres of pasture planted in brome grass. Now, will anhydrous ammonia work for me? And when should I use it?
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to skip over your question. Let's get some expert advice again from our county agent friend.
Naturally, if you're seeding winter wheat or any other winter grain, you should apply your anhydrous ammonia prior to seeding. If you're growing small grains or grasses for fall and winter pasturing, apply the ammonia prior to seeding. For maximum yields, another application can be made later in the growing season to replace the nitrogen removed by heavy winter grazing. Incidentally, in many types of soils and in sod-bound grasses, the subsoiling action of the cultivator shanks during the injection operation will be helpful. Commercial vegetable growers also are finding anhydrous ammonia an excellent fertilizing agent. Truck crops take tremendous amounts of plant food from the soil. Supplying them large quantities of nitrogen will increase the yield. Actually, whether you're raising cotton or corn, wheat or rice, small grains for pasturing, seed grasses or sugar beets, whatever the crop, you'll find there's increased yield in this new way of fertilizing.
Well, I think we're ready to sum up now. Let's look at the advantages in anhydrous ammonia. It's less expensive per pound of available nitrogen. It has the highest nitrogen content. It works equally well when applied by injection or irrigation. And in either case, it becomes a part of the soil, stays there until removed by the plant. It won't blow away like solid fertilizers spread on the surface. It helps grow larger crops with less rainfall, and you can apply it at the time that best fits your work schedule. Add all of those points, and it seems to me to be just a matter of time until you start using it yourself. When you do, you'll be getting bigger crops, increased profits, and you'll be fertilizing at your own convenience and making the most of your time. Now, this is a little more practical reason for changing your habits than our friend in the Christmas tree business dreamed of. Even with his determination, I doubt that his idea of selling Christmas trees in July would work. Well, I guess he can do it after all if he finds the right customers. And I think he will. But I'm afraid the rest of us have to handle things on a little more sensible basis. It seems to me one of the best forms of good sense is using your time to the best advantage. For farmers, that means fertilizing at the best time. But if you're selling Christmas trees, You'd better stick to Christmas time.
Nature speaks to mankind in many ways. Others hear it roar of the sea. Nature speaks also with the majesty of her beauty. The mountains and forests, the roaring falls. But man gains most from nature's wisdom of achievement, from nature's miracle of creation. Nothing can equal the miracle wrought by nature. Man sometimes believes that he, too, creates miracles. Huge cities to protect the millions against, yes, against nature herself, against cold and heat, rain and snow. Man has captured the water and made it his servant so he could use it when the rains would fail him. Man has learned to fly faster and higher than any bird can fly. And man's latest achievement, power, miraculous power. But to achieve his miracles, to search for them, to conceive them, to build them, man must eat. And man has not yet learned to make food. Each year, since time immemorial, our faith and hopes are reborn, whether we know it or not. Each year, millions and millions of tiny seeds, entrusted to the good earth, renew our faith and our hopes. The seed will grow. Life will continue. Truly nothing can replace this miracle wrought by nature. Nothing can replace the miracle wrought by the sun and the soil and the rains.
Yes, this is a miracle. This miracle of life, of growth and food, had its beginning, of course, when the flower of the plant was pollinated. But I will begin my story with the seed in the soil. The resting seed, waiting for the warmth of spring. In each seed, there is a miniature plant called the embryo. This still dormant embryo is surrounded by a storehouse stocked with the foods a young plant needs: the carbohydrates, the proteins, the fats, the vitamins, and also the minerals. The very same foods which we need, young and old. In the spring, when the sun warms the moist soil, the miniature plant in the seed wakes up, begins to grow. The now rapidly growing plant feeds off the carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals so wisely provided by nature. By the time the young plant has just broken through the soil, it has about exhausted the food and mineral supply in the seed. Nature has weaned the little fellow. He is on his own. The green plant now must make its own food and obtain its own minerals. But how? This was a mystery for many long years. At one time, some believed that water, and water alone, was the principal nourishment of plants. They believed that the soil merely held the plant erect and protected its roots from excessive cold or heat. Many years later, another step was taken, and another finding resulted. 2 plants were grown. One was grown only in water. The second was grown in water in which small amounts of garden soil were mixed. The bigger and healthier growth of the second plant proved a point. Something had come from the soil and not from the water. Still another theory was born a bit later. This one stated, plants feed only on decaying vegetable and animal materials, namely organic matter. Plants eat organic matter. But then, and finally, in 1840 came the real key to the answer. A German scientist, von Liebig, made a report on plant nutrition which quickly became world famous. Here's what he said.
Plants find food only in inorganic substances, like minerals from the soil and other constituents from air and water.
Liebig also determined correctly that about 95% of the dry matter of plants comes from the atmosphere. And he also stated correctly that to draw this 95% from the atmosphere, plants must be able to draw approximately 5% of their dry weight from the soil. Liebig revealed this second discovery in his famous law of the minimum, which can be expressed this way.
The yield of a crop is limited by the deficiency of any one necessary element, even though all others are present in adequate amounts.
To clearly understand the meaning of Liebig's discovery, imagine that the constituents which the plant absorbed from the atmosphere and from the soil were forged into a chain. The strength of the chain is weakened accordingly. And as every link is essential to the strength of the chain, so is every constituent essential to the health of the plant. Liebig's theories, incomplete as they were, laid a foundation which today enables modern scientific research to understand the needs of growing plants. Yes, we know that the miracle of plant growth depends on a number of chemical elements, 15 of which today are considered essential. 3 of these, carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen, come from the air and from the water. They form about 95% of the plant's dry matter. All the other elements which the plant needs come to it from the soil. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are the first group. In the case of legumes, as the only exception, nitrogen also comes from the air. A second group, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. And then there is a third group, the so-called minor or trace elements. Boron, manganese, copper, zinc, iron, and molybdenum. Other elements, such as sodium and chlorine, may favorably affect plant growth, although they are not now classified as essential. And as research continues, still other chemical elements, beneficial or even essential to plant growth, may be found. So there you have it. Inorganic substances, chemical substances. But they are the raw materials which plants need once they've exhausted their food supply in the seed. Then how does the young plant use the elements from the air, water, and soil? How does it take inorganic elements and transform them into organic matter, into food? Food for itself, food for animal and man. Well, the manufacture of food starts in the leaf of the plant. What takes place in that modest leaf truly is a miracle. It is a process of creation which is hardly understood by our small minds. Carbon and oxygen in the form of carbon dioxide from the air enter the leaf through tiny openings which are called stomata. Hydrogen in the form of water and soil minerals in solution are taken in by the roots and carried up to the leaf. Then there is the sun. The energy of the rays of light, which originates millions of miles away, is absorbed by the leaf. Chlorophyll, the green pigment in the leaf, transforms the sun's energy into chemical energy, and thus plays a vital role in the conversion of the inorganic substances from the soil, air, and water into completely new substances, into carbohydrates, organic substances, which plants, animal, and man can digest and utilize. From these first simple carbohydrates, the growing plants are able to form additional substances, the starches and sugars, the fats and oils, the proteins, the vitamins. And there are also the minerals, found partly as vital constituents of these organic foods and partly as inorganic materials which remain unchanged. Thus, each plant not only manufactures energy-producing organic matter, but also is a storehouse of minerals, all so important to animal and human nutrition. Plants, of course, are the first to use these substances, organic and mineral, so that they may live and grow. Whatever the plants do not use for their immediate needs, they store away. And whatever the plants store away, that is our food. The starches in potatoes or in corn. The sugars in sugarcane or in sugar beets. The oil of peanuts. The protein in beans. And the protein in the grasses and legumes of our pastures. So, the next time you see a growing plant, a green plant, with the sun shining on it, remember, it is more than just a plant, much more. It is a factory, a living factory, able to use inorganic matter like the minerals from the soil and other matter from the air and water and change them into organic matter like carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and vitamins. That is, into food. Without the green plant, there would be no food. Without it, man couldn't live. Yes, the Earth's green carpet is the miracle which year after year, century after century, gives us our daily bread. But not alone, not by nature only. History tells us this.
Since the dawn of time, man has worked to help nature. By the sweat of his brow, with his hands and his back and his brain, man cultivated nature's soil. Man raised more food. In time, he raised still more, and more, and more. Man took great harvests. He returned little or nothing to the soil. He mined the soil, and he left despair. Man was the despoiler of nature until he learned to understand.
The yield of a crop is limited by the deficiency of any one necessary element, even though all others are present in adequate amounts.
Yes. Liebig's famous law of the minimum, the foundation on which our modern scientific research is built, tells us that the miracles of nature are not endless. Let us look at that chain again. Carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen coming from the air and water almost always are available in adequate quantities. But the 12 essential chemical elements in the soil, although equally important, are not always available in adequate amounts. Therefore, practical plant nutrition problems almost always are due to the deficiency of one or more of these soil elements. Nitrogen, for instance. Nitrogen promotes rapid growth, gives dark green color to the plant, encourages fruit or seed development, and increases the protein content of the crop. But when this link is weakened or broken, no nitrogen, or not enough of it, a starving crop. Phosphorus gives a rapid and vigorous start to plants, promotes early root formation and growth, and aids in seed formation. Not enough phosphorus. Potassium increases the vigor and disease resistance of plants, produces strong, stiff stalks, and increases the plumpness of the seed. Deficient in potassium. And then calcium, magnesium, and sulfur, boron and manganese, copper and zinc, iron and molybdenum. All have important functions. If any one of them is lacking, the rest might just as well be lacking too. Now that we understand the importance of chemical elements for good agriculture, why are they so often not available in the soil? Well, some of our soils were poor from the very beginning. Mother Nature never had supplied them with the right amount of elements necessary for good agriculture. Other land became poor because water and wind erosion, also leaching, often were not checked until vast amounts of important soil elements were lost to the crops. Then we have the harvests. Because of the harvests, each and every year, large quantities of chemical elements are removed from our fields. We know that a corn crop of 100 bushels per acre draws from the soil on the average 130 pounds of nitrogen, 22 pounds of phosphorus, 110 pounds of potassium, 37 pounds of calcium, 22 pounds of sulfur, 33 pounds of magnesium, 2 pounds of iron, 1/3 pound of manganese, 1/20th of a pound of boron, and traces of zinc, copper, and molybdenum. By the time this crop is harvested, it has removed about 360 pounds of elements from the soil, draining fertility from the land and reducing the acre's productivity. What can be, must be done, first to maintain, then to increase the productivity of each acre of our farmlands. Well, cooperation is the answer. Only when working with nature can man maintain and increase the land's fertility and improve the crops which grow. Cooperating with nature is the way to abundance. Thinking this way, we have set up agricultural vocational schools and colleges, state agricultural experiment stations, extension services, and soil conservation services in every state of the Union. We have the United States Department of Agriculture and the state departments of agriculture, and many farm organizations, scores of industrial laboratories all over the country. We have developed better seeds, new and better strains of fruit and vegetables, better disease controls, better pest controls. We have bred better strains of animals, we have invented highly efficient farm machinery. We have found new and better rules to wisely use our land and to conserve our soil. We have developed new and better practices to improve the tilth of the soil. We are applying lime to correct soil acidity. We are irrigating the land to increase crop yields and to bring new acres into production. But the success of all these many contributions toward a better agriculture always depends upon the proper supply of chemical elements in the soil. Yes, we have also learned to fertilize the soil so that we can maintain and improve the productivity of our acres. And the future is before us. The future and a challenge. A challenge because we know the size and extent of our farmlands, and we know that there's not much new land that can be added to it. There are no new frontiers to go to. And we also know that our population is increasing, that the need for food is increasing. That is the challenge. But we also know and understand the needs of plants, the simple, common sense needs, and how we can supply those needs. But most important, we know that man has learned to work with nature. This knowledge, this partnership between man and nature, that is the answer to the challenge. The answer which history today records with these words.
Man who explodes the atom. Man who flies fast and high. Man who builds huge cities. That man also is humbly and intelligently aware of the needs of his crops, the needs of his soil.
Yes, today man understands that the supply of minerals in the soil is so often the limiting factor which determines agriculture's success or failure in its all-important task of contributing toward our country's standard of living. Fertilizers from distant sources, bringing to the fields all the vital chemical elements needed to replenish the soil. Fertilizers from outside sources, containing the vital chemical elements so that in the future, agriculture may provide more and better food for our population, which every year is increasing by the millions. Yes, only with fertilizers, blended according to the needs of each soil, can we be sure that the crops are supplied with the vital elements they need to live and grow. And so, as man works with nature, in the study halls and in the laboratories, with test tubes or testing the plants themselves, and on the farms and ranches with many acres, or on those with just a few, any challenge the future may hold will be met, because man is making the most of a miracle.
Whether it's a metropolitan city or a town or a small village or a rural locality, the telephone plays an important role in the everyday life of the inhabitants. Dependable telephone service is essential. Cable forms an important part in the network of dependable service, for it contains within its sheath the lines of many services that must be maintained with a minimum of interruption. Hundreds of customers may be without telephone service if one cable fails. The miles of cable used in providing telephone service are ever increasing. Applications for service in areas now fed by wire plant, together with demands for service in new housing developments, require in most cases the erection of new cable. Many open wire leads will be replaced, adding to the many miles of cable that stretch out over open country to serve thinly settled areas, cables that often are exposed to wind and storm conditions. Many miles of subscriber cable are on streets and therefore exposed to tree conditions, foreign wire, and other plant hazards. Then there are the subscriber cables located in the rear of property, where damage may result from a number of causes. Block cable along buildings presents another trouble problem. Building construction, alterations, and repairs create potential troubles that may result in service failure. Cable failures must be kept to a minimum if we are to provide dependable telephone service. Most of us have seen conditions like this: a tree blown over the cable by a storm. Cable crews are at work restoring service. The majority of our troubles are of the preventable type that can be detected and remedied before they develop into failures. Most of these occur in the section of the cable 4 feet each side of the pole, an area called the trouble zone or T-zone that can be easily inspected during the course of regular day-by-day assignments. Each day offers many excellent opportunities to inspect for possible cable troubles in the T-zone. What does T-zone inspection involve? What are its possibilities and how do we make this inspection? Let's watch this installer as he completes an order for a customer service. After completing his work at the terminal, he can, with a minimum of time and effort, inspect for any potential troubles that may exist. He moves into position and inspects the end of the sleeve for cracks and the sleeve for proper support, under the rings for sheath cutting, and the sheath for abrasion, stone cuts, and bruises, the Y-splice for cracks. Now he looks along the span. Cable rings have become misplaced, allowing the cable to bow. A condition that should be corrected or reported. He observes in the other direction a condition that may cause sheath burns and possible failure, and this should also be reported. The secondary power wires are too close to the sheath. The terminal tail is inspected for cracks at the cable clamps and for looseness where it enters the base of the terminal. The terminal is checked to be sure it is tight on the pole. This terminal is loose. It is a simple operation to tighten it, and it may prevent a cracked terminal tail. The terminal tail is checked for looseness at the base of the terminal. A cracked sheath may be hiding there. This is an actual example of such a condition. The terminal must be replaced. Also, a crack exists at the bend. How often we observe a condition such as this. The cable has slipped towards the span, placing a strain at the cable clamp and also at the first ring. There may be a crack at the cable clamp or a ring cut at the first ring. Also, check for broken bonds between the cable sheath and strand. No grade clamp exists at this location, but one is necessary to prevent cable creepage. And by the way, when we inspect for trouble, we must be careful not to cause trouble. The weight of the body on that safety strap is not doing the terminal tail any good. Slack cable on the pole causes abrasions and sheath cracks at the cable clamps. While most ring cuts occur within 2 rings of the pole, many of those in the span can be detected from the T-zone and reported before they develop into actual troubles. At poles where the cable is protected from lightning by 83A protectors, examine the connection at the clamp for tightness. Examine the ground wire for continuity. Open the protector and dust it out. Make certain the screw of the ground binding post is tight. Look for any missing protector blocks and broken or corroded springs. There should be a bond between the strand and sheath at this location. Cable twisted around the strand is another source of potential trouble. It creates a condition that aggravates ring cutting. Cable crossovers may not be located where they can be readily observed from the T-zone area. When they are, inspection may indicate potential trouble. In this case, the top cable sheath was worn completely through, where it rubbed against the cable underneath. It's always good practice to look around when at a terminal pole. By glancing along the cable to the crossover, then to the strand termination, this employee discovered a building plate partially pulled off the building. Observe the severe strain on the cable. Tree conditions like this one are another common source of cable trouble. A cable free to swing against a tree will develop ring cuts, abrasions, and crystallized areas. Down guys rubbing against the cable sheath often cause trouble. This down guy has rubbed a hole in the cable sheath. Here is a typical hunting ground for squirrels. It is in locations such as this that we should be careful to check for sheath damage from squirrel bites. When working at a terminal on a UG pole, T-zone inspection should include the cable riser. Here, a broken iron cap leaves an ideal place for children to insert sticks and stones. Sheath damage may result. A split lead cap at the top of the pipe is another invitation for children. And in both cases, water may drain in and freeze, causing cable compression. This U-guard was probably crushed by a truck. It should be removed and the cable examined. Here is an example of crystallization. When air was applied, it was found that the damage extended completely through the sheath. This condition also may be observed in the T-zone area. Observe the deep pitting. But sometimes we are guilty of causing cable failures by our own actions. The practice of using the cable as a step when climbing into the balcony seat finally resulted in a cracked sheath. This man is using spurs to climb a stepped pole. Spur holes don't happen often, but when they do, they cause trouble. When work is done at underground boxes, let's look to see if a bond exists and is tight between the underground and aerial cable. Sometimes poor soldering causes these bonds to become loose and valueless. In block cables also, the majority of troubles occur in that portion of the cable easily visible from the terminal. By stepping back, we are in a position to observe potential trouble conditions that may exist. Here is an example. Clotheslines have been erected above a garage roof. Two rings have become detached from the strand, allowing the cable to rub on the clothesline hooks. Observe the debris placed by children. And don't overlook conditions such as this. Now here is a block cable extension to a small apartment house. The strand was supported by means of a wall insert. This insert pulled out and strain was thrown on the cable. This is a potential source of trouble. Following along the cable, we find other potential troubles. Sheath abrasion at the cable ring, and also where the cable clamp has been broken away from the building. A block cable in a poor location invites trouble. Children caused this damage with a knife. Several repairs were required. If we are alert and report conditions such as these, many troubles can be prevented. Here is a clamp that was pried off by children. T-zone inspection should include terminal face plates, which sometimes crack, allowing moisture to enter the cable. Here is another instance where our own actions can cause trouble. To gain access to a terminal on the rear of this building, a ladder is necessary. When placing the ladder, we are a little careless, and the damage finally results in a cable trouble. The other side shows damage from the same cause. Here is another source of potential trouble. A missing bridle ring in the spout strap allows the cable to sag against the downpipe. And here is a close pole support that's not doing our cable sheath a bit of good. T-zone inspection has many possibilities. It can be done with a minimum of time and effort in connection with regular day-to-day assignments. It covers the trouble area in which the majority of cable failures occur and which can be easily seen from the terminal. It will give us warning of potential trouble that can be repaired at much lower cost than when failure occurs. But even more important, our customers will be spared the inconvenience of service interruptions. Through T-zone inspection, we will be better able to provide dependable telephone service.
Handwriting is a dispensable part of everyday living. True, science and industry have combined to give us the typewriter, the dictaphone, the telephone, the news teletype, the instantaneous magic of radio, the motion picture projector in our classrooms, television in our living rooms, textbooks, comic books too, and many other ways of communicating ideas to our fellow man besides the written word. But handwriting is far from being obsolete. It serves a vital purpose in all kinds of jobs. The hospital nurse keeps her patient's chart hourly. The draftsmen and engineers make notations on their blueprints. The clerk in the big city department store makes out sales checks all day long. And the general storekeeper couldn't get through a day without his ever-present reminder pad and pencil. Sad moments require handwriting too, when you exceed a speed limit or run through a stop signal. Can you imagine a traffic cop not being able to write a ticket? Handwriting is a language as important to us as the one we speak. A language we all learn early in life. Learning to write properly and easily is one of our first tasks in school. Some of us grown-ups remember it as an unpleasant chore, with poor paper, scratchy pens, and a teacher who wasn't afraid to use the hickory stick. But it's much more pleasant today. Better paper, pens, and ink, more comfortable desks, and pleasant surroundings. Better lighting in our classrooms. and a better understanding of the part handwriting plays in our daily lives, which brings better handwriting within the reach of all. Good readable handwriting has effortless motion and easy grace. Effortless motion and easy grace. As important as handwriting itself is legibility. If what you write cannot be read, your handwriting is useless. We have devised wonderful ways of speeding our letters and packages to their destinations. Loading and unloading the mail takes only minutes when the train stops in the station. In fact, the post office rides the rails. Letters are sorted while they speed on their way. And letters that are more important can be sent by air, perhaps reaching their destinations in far distant cities in time for afternoon delivery on the same day they were dropped into the mailbox. But no one's figured out a way to deliver a letter that cannot be deciphered. This year, thousands of letters will die. Will yours be among them? All writing is intended to be read, even diary entries kept under lock and key. It takes an expert to be able to read the cuneiform clay tablets of the ancient Assyrians. In white limestone and alabaster, I fashioned beasts of the mountains and of the seas, and set them up in the palace gates. I adorned it and made it glorious. You probably can't read these Egyptian hieroglyphics on the sarcophagus of Har Kabet either. Sole companion, overseer within the great house, overseer within the shrine, overseer of the palace, Har Kabet, possessor of honor. Even today, there are many different ways of putting words on paper. Confucius says, within the 4 seas, all men are brothers. And this might as well be Greek. Indeed, it is Greek. But here's an American housewife writing a note that should be legible.
No, milk, next. 2 weeks.
Good handwriting is a business asset.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for getting in touch with me, Mr. Wainwright. I'm delighted that I was chosen for this job.
Well, not at all, Miss Cotter. I have your report here from our personnel department. We'll be very happy to have you with us. Your qualifications are excellent. And quite aside from your academic qualifications, I was personally impressed with your handwriting.
Oh, really?
Yes, here. May I show you this?
What is it?
It's a note handed to me a week ago by my secretary. That's the young lady who's leaving, you know.
I'm afraid I can't make it out.
Well, I couldn't make it out either until I had it translated. But that's why I don't mind telling you that I was pleased to be able to read your very legible handwriting.
Well, I always try to write clearly, and I can certainly see where bad handwriting could be a nuisance.
Yes, that's about it.
Sloppy handwriting can be costly. Here's a farmer who wants to buy a lamppost for his house in the country. Unfortunately, this salesgirl scribbles his address. So the truck driver mistakes Tarrytown RD for Tarrytown Road. And it just happens there is a family by the same name on the 7th floor of the apartment building.
What do I do with that thing?
I don't know, guess your mom and daddy ordered. Here it is.
Let me in with it.
Okay.
Several days later, our farmer friend gets a bill for the lamp post.
Miss Jacobs, just received a bill for that lamppost order 3 weeks ago. Hasn't arrived yet.
But I thought that was delivered.
You say it's been shipped. I haven't received it.
Well, I have the order number right here in front of me, and I'll take care of that right away.
Well, I have the whole, Doug. But I'll soon get the lamppost and afraid somebody might fall in it.
I promise you it'll be on the truck in the morning. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Bye.
But the original order with its scribbled address still looks the same to the delivery man. Careless handwriting causes incalculable losses in the business world each year. Let's visit a 5th grade classroom where a practice session in handwriting is about to begin. These boys and girls use fountain pens and have a teacher who's got rhythm.
Round, 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 nice and easy, ready, roll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 50. That was fine. That's enough now for our warming up exercises today, boys and girls.
First they learn the letter, then they use it in creative sentences and paragraphs.
And when you're making them, see if you can get them all at the same start and all at the same finish. All right, get your arms rolling now, nice and easy. Round, round 1. Round, round 2. Round, round 3. Round, round 4. I wonder if we can think of some good sentences using capital L's, boys and girls. Try to think of one that really tells something, maybe about geography or history. And as soon as you think of one that you think is good enough, you may go ahead and write it. Most of us are writing our sentences now. I like the way you used your arms, boys and girls. Suppose we hear some of those sentences. Amazon lowlands are very hot and rainy. Do you know where the Amazon lowlands are? South America. That's right. Now let's have another sentence. Catherine? The St. Lawrence River was discovered by Cartier. Everybody likes to make a wish. So I think it would be nice if we would write a paragraph about a wish that you would like to have. Take a few minutes to think before you start to write your paragraph. Peggy?
My wish is that I want to be a nurse because the world needs doctors and nurses like Clara Barton. She was a nurse in the Civil War. A nurse can help all the sick people.
That's a very nice thought, Peggy.
My wish is that I was a princess because I would have lots of excitement. Someday I might even rule a country if I get married.
A 2nd grader doesn't have much of a distinct style of handwriting, along with an ability to express herself. Depending upon the school she attends and her attitude toward handwriting, her writing skill and style may improve or deteriorate as she grows older. It's your style, of course, that makes your handwriting personal. Sometimes this style might be deliberately on the fancy side, in keeping with the changing fads that accompany growing up. There are many attractive styles, belonging to all sorts of people, working at all kinds of jobs. We all write differently. But regardless of style, All handwriting must be easily readable, not like this. Remember, people will judge you by your handwriting just as they will judge you by the kind of clothes you wear and the way you behave in public. Lives can depend on this kind of writing. Or this.
Morning. Any orders for train number 75?
Yes, there's orders out today.
Slow order.
Yeah, do not exceed 15 miles per hour between mileposts 110 and 111. Count of track repairs.
Okay, I'll see if the engineer gets one of the orders.
Okay.
Written instructions help guarantee a safe trip. As we develop our personalities. At first, it is a slow, tedious job with large letters. As we grow older, it becomes easier. Our speed increases and the size of our letters decreases. Legibility is generally best at the 6th grade level, then gradually worsens. The need to get it written quickly, the greater emphasis on meaning and content, the stress and strain of personal tensions all combine to make handwriting less readable. Upon the altar of God, eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. So wrote Thomas Jefferson. Sometimes a college letterman has to write a letter. What kind of impression will your letter make? Since the dawn of recorded time, since long before God placed his own handwriting on the wall to express his displeasure with his people, the written word has been used to communicate ideas to man. Sometimes these ideas become immortal. Sometimes they have awakened the conscience and help to shape the destiny of the world. Sometimes they simply are the outpouring of a heart in a love letter. The letter speaks for you. It is almost as though you were there. Civilization gives us the tremendous speed of a jet plane. The push-button age of soaring rockets and atomic missiles. And the amazing intricacies of modern office machines. But little children still must learn to write. While machines manufacture products both innumerable and undreamed of, and change the appearance of others, no machine will ever be capable of expressing itself or of contributing an idea. There never can be a substitute for a creative, thoughtful individual. And learning to write is part of learning to think. Ask yourself this question. As long as civilization endures, mankind must always use the wonderful language of the handwritten word.
During the time I have been privileged to serve in Memphis, I have seen many changes. The old outmoded ways have given way to the new and different. The useless methods have fallen by the wayside. Recently, a number of things have happened to me which have caused me to stop and consider some of the wonderful things the Lord has given us. You know, We are living in a marvelous age. Men orbiting the earth, new inventions for the betterment of mankind, new medicines. These are the things we now take for granted, things we didn't have years ago. For instance, I visited the new St. Jude Hospital a while back to see a young friend of mine. I thought as I walked to the door, isn't this a wonderful thing for Memphis? Certainly a change from years gone by. Here is a place where all may come for healing. Later that same day, I was driving by one of the newer schools in Memphis, and the same thought occurred to me. Look at this fine new educational building. It also is a dramatic change from the little one-room schoolhouse of years ago. And our churches, haven't they improved? Now we have comfortable, well-lighted churches of which all can be proud. Yes, today we are enjoying the benefits of modern living. Televisions, new books, new appliances, new foods on our tables. The good Lord has indeed given us much to be thankful for. One of the most startling new ideas are our new cemeteries. These are the new ideas which are doing away with the old outmoded ways. Why, I can remember when we had to literally chop our way through brush and undergrowth to get to what was nothing more than an overgrown weed patch. I remember thinking at the time, surely there is a better way. This is why I always enjoy a visit to New Park Cemetery. It is beautiful. You know, a great statesman once said, show me the manner in which a nation or community cares for its dead, and I will measure with mathematical exactness the tender mercies of its people, their respect for the laws of the land, and their loyalty to high ideals. This is certainly true. You can recognize the kind of people by the way they bury their loved ones. Memphis can be proud of New Park. Recently, I was in their offices with a number of Memphis clergymen. Mr. Winston of New Park is explaining to us the new family protection plan. He said it was designed expressly so there would be no other charges at the time of need. I think this is a fine thing. There have been so many widows who have had the unpleasant experience of paying more and more and more.
I'm Lila Jones, one of the widows referred to by Dr. Owen. The story I'm going to tell you is not a pretty one, but I hope it will prevent some other woman having to go through the heartache and disappointments that I went through. In 1952, my husband was killed in an automobile accident. It was not a pleasant thing to go through. But George, my husband, had prepared pretty well, I thought. He had provided as much insurance as we could afford at the time. He had written his will, and we had bought cemetery property. But it was right here that we were fooled. Immediately after George's death, I called to make arrangements and thought all the things at the cemetery had been paid for when we bought the grave spaces. This wasn't true, and I got the greatest shock of my life. First, there was the cost of opening and closing the grave. This actually exceeded the original price of the grave space. And the cemetery in which we had bought grave spaces had become just simply awful looking. Weeds everywhere, no upkeep. You know the kind, way back up in the country. When we had bought the spaces, we thought it would be nice to be buried near his parents and my parents. Well, I don't mind telling you, I was feeling pretty miserable about it. Then, right on the top of everything else, I bought a monument. And of course, in my grief, paid 6 times what George would have wanted me to pay. Oh, not that I wouldn't have done it again, mind you. It's just that if George and I had sat down and worked all this out together, we would have done something entirely different. So now here I am. My husband is laid to rest in a weed-grown cemetery with no provisions made for the care and upkeep. I have spent an excessive amount of money on a monument while under emotional stress. Money that should have gone to raise George's children. And all we have is a grave of sorrows. We can never visit there without remembering all the grief and sorrow attached to it. Well, I told you at the beginning that this was not a pretty story. But I'm happy to say it has a beautiful ending. Last year, I remarried to a wonderful man. He is kind and generous, and we are very much in love. Yesterday, we made our arrangements at a cemetery. What happened to me a few years ago will never, never happen again. I believe these arrangements are the most wonderful things in the world. They have brought the peace of mind to our family, which comes only with knowing that everything has been taken care of. When we began searching for a beautiful cemetery, the first thing we asked was, does your cemetery have perpetual care? When we called New Park Cemetery, we learned that 25% of every dollar at New Park goes into a special perpetual care trust fund. Now, this trust fund provides the money for the care and upkeep on the cemetery, and it will provide it forever. This sounded so good to us that we had the memorial counselor call on us to tell us more about New Park. I was very exact and firm in telling him about what we wanted. You know, the part about not having to pay 1 single cent more at the time of death. And he was very nice. He smiled and told us about their new complete family protection plan. I'll always remember that name. Family Protection Plan. And it is really complete. He explained it in this way. First, the family receives 2 grave spaces, one for the husband and one for the wife. And we immediately asked about the children. But he explained that if we were to lose any children before they were 21 years of age, New Park would bury them free at no extra charge. This also went for all the children we might have in the future. And just between you and me, we are expecting a new baby in the spring. When I asked about the opening and closing of the graves at the time of death, the counselor said that this family protection plan included the opening and closings, even for the children. And the most beautiful part of the plan is that we receive a family monument for our family estate. There will be no other cost. Everything is paid for. The counselor told us there is no other cemetery in the entire Mid-South area that has such a plan, where everything is completely paid for. I have heard some women say, we can't afford cemetery lots. Well, let me tell you from experience, you would have to afford it if it were to happen to you tomorrow. If the same thing happened to you as happened to me, you would have to buy it immediately, and you would have to pay cash. We like the New Park plan because we can pay on easy monthly installments, and if anything happens to my husband while we're paying for it, the entire amount remaining to be paid is canceled. We wouldn't owe 1 cent more. Sometimes, you know, it takes a little courage to sit down and discuss cemetery property. But you'll be glad you did, just as I am. And I pray to God that in time, no woman will ever have to go through my experience.
In our modern Christian society, the obligation of the husband to his family is one of the most compelling things known to man. Regardless of what happens, he takes care of his family. He protects them from harm. He provides food and shelter and loving care. This is the right way. This is God's way. It is my firm belief that it is the responsibility of the husband and the father to accept the responsibility of making the necessary arrangements so his family will not be forced into a hasty decision at the time of death and grief. This will eliminate forever the burial of necessity and substitute loving protection for the family which will endure forever.
Joe.